All right, guys, so let me weigh in on the feud between Gregg Valentino, Fouad Abiad over Sam Sulek. Contracts, terms, expressions, yada, yada, yada. This is Christian Duke, Strength Addicts on YouTube, all social media platforms. StrengthAddicts.com is the main page, powered by Iron Mag Labs. Make your mark with IronMagLabs.com. So, Iron Mag Labs is also the sponsor of RX Muscle and a bunch of other sites. So, on an episode of After Hours, Gregg Valentino made a comment that somebody told him, I believe, that Sam Sulek really looked up to Lee Priest, but couldn't do an interview with Lee or couldn't go on RX Muscle because of contractual purposes. Then Gregg made a comment, apparently, where he said that something to the effect of, look, the guy should be able to go on podcasts, but he can't because, the company that's pimping him out won't allow that. And I guess that got back to Fouad, because that's what friends do in the industry, right? Like the friends that, told Gregg and the friends that told Fouad. I mean, I don't know if those are really friends or not. They're kind of shit starters if you ask me, but whatever. And then Fouad basically said, who listens to Gregg Valentino? And, chastised Dave for listening to him. And then, Gregg doesn't get upset by these things, but he is upset because he doesn't want Fouad going online there and saying that nobody listens to Gregg Valentino, nobody takes his word seriously, that he's not credible. He may say it doesn't bother him. Of course it bothers him, you know what I mean? But I mean, he wrote the Ramblin' Freak for 15 years with MD. He worked with Iron Mag TV when I ran it, 2017, 2018. And he had like 3-4 shows on there, We had him at the Arnold Classic booth in 2018, and we had a shit ton of people show up for Gregg. So, Gregg, I know Gregg, and I know that Fouad's comments probably, I'm not going to say they hurt him, but they probably upset him a little bit because he didn't mean anything personal. I can tell you, Gregg's not, he doesn't do that. He's not looking to hurt Fouad. He's definitely not looking to hurt Sam. And he knows all about exclusivity contracts, I mean, MD had them, Flex had them, you know what I mean? A lot of companies have them. There's rumors that Raw has them. There's rumors that Hostile has them. So, now look, I know that Fouad probably didn't like the term pimping, okay? Because it sounds like, they're whoring this kid out. It sounds like they're, because what does a pimp usually do? He takes she takes 90%, exploits the person working for them, rides around in a Cadillac with a fedora hat, and a leopard skin jacket, and alligator skin shoes. Meanwhile, the poor person on the corner there, they're working all hours of the night, sometimes walking around barefoot, getting in out of cars, you know what I mean? Going to seedy motel rooms, that sort of thing, just a visual of it, And that's not what Hostile's doing. I'm sure Hostile's paying Sam a really nice amount of money, and Fouad is basically saying, why should Sam go on any RX podcasts when he doesn't know anybody there? I mean, I don't know if that's exactly true, especially if, Sam's a fan of Lee Priest's and he's a fan of Gregg Valentino's or knows who Gregg is. Everybody knows who Gregg is. So, it's just one of those things that just kind of like, in my opinion, just kind of snowballed. You know what I mean? I don't know why I just turned around like that, but I just did. I hope you enjoyed that. But the bottom line is, this feud's not going to end anytime soon because, and Gregg even said, hey, if Fouad wants to bring me on, which he's not going to bring Gregg on. Fouad's not going to bring Gregg Valentino onto Bro Chat after he basically said that nobody cares what he says, and after he basically said that, he's not credible. If he brought him on, it would basically make him look like a shill. So at this point, he can't bring Gregg on. He also can't really extend an olive branch because when you say that someone's not credible, you're basically calling them a nobody, and Gregg's been on countless documentaries. He's been in countless movies. He was under contract with Generation Iron for many years. He worked for Iron Mag TV. He's a regular at RX Muscle. He wrote the Ramblin' Freak column for 15 years with MD. Then he had a show with MD alongside me that was backed by Iron Mag Labs. It was probably like a year almost at MD. And so Fouad shouldn't have said that. And you know, if Gregg meant to say pimping out in a bad way, he shouldn't have said it, but he didn't mean it in a bad way. And so I'm not really like gonna pick a side here so much as I just want to say that unfortunately I don't see this feud ending anytime quick. I know Gregg's upset. He's not going to say he's upset, but he's upset because to say that he's not credible is highly insulting, especially when he was not trying to be insulting. But again, it's these friends, you know, that update everybody about what's going on, and these shit starters that I think are ultimately to blame. But in the end, you know, look, Sam has got like 3 million followers or something like that, you know, and if he is a fan of Lee Priest, he should be able to go on any podcast. And I know that Fouad said he can go on any podcast, but he just doesn't want to go on podcasts. And even said that he has enough of a hard time getting him on his podcast. So maybe, I don't know. And we're never going to see Sam's contract. You can forget about that. I know a lot of people now are going to try to find it and publish it. It's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen because, you know, those are very, very private documents. And I think that there's no way that Sam's going to leak it out. Sam's probably making, if I had to guess, between $50,000 and $100,000 a month. Sam's not leaking that contract out. And even the person, that Joe guy that's got a podcast out of New Jersey, I've seen the podcast a couple times, a good podcast, I just don't know his last name, but he said that when he asked Sam if he could go on his podcast, he didn't really get much of an answer. I think the guy may actually, like Fouad says, may actually not like going on podcasts. That's very possible. He's not a competitor. I don't know that he's ever done a show. He has no interest in getting a pro card or doing the Arnold Classic or the Mr. Olympia. I don't think he cares about podcasts. You know, he's got his YouTube channel that's blowing up. You know, he's got people that, you know, have haircuts like him, talk like him, which is kind of that DLB effect. You know, when Dana Lynn Bailey was just coming out, there was like a sea of women that looked just like her. Same thing with the Hodge twins, Furious Pete. I mean, this is just what it is. This guy's a megastar. This guy's like Liver King without the fraud. So basically, what's he going to gain by going on RX Muscle? He's got to go on Bro Chat probably because his sponsor owns it. You know what I mean? That's a contractual obligation. And he may really look up to Lee Priest. That doesn't mean that necessarily he wants to be interviewed by Lee Priest or do a 3-hour podcast with Lee Priest or even share a booth with Lee Priest. It may just mean that he really likes Lee Priest and he would like to shake his hand, pick his brain, maybe get a workout in with him. It doesn't necessarily mean that he wants to collaborate with him. And it certainly doesn't mean that he has to necessarily want to be one of, I don't know, 8 people alongside Lee Priest on an RX Muscle after-hour show. RX Muscle is the biggest site right now. There's no MD. The Muscle Sport does good hits. Evolution does good hits. But in terms of the complete 360 package, I would say RX is pretty much it. But like Fouad said, he doesn't need RX. He doesn't need podcasts. He doesn't even really need Hostile, to be honest with you. But Hostile signed him because he's got these numbers. And Hostile wants to sell protein powder. And they want to sell podcast downloads. And they want to sell whatever, you know. But he doesn't even need Hostile. And he doesn't need Bro Chat. So it's just one of those things, guys. But I don't see this feud, you know, slowing down anytime soon. Because I think Fouad crossed the line with Gregg. And I think Gregg might have crossed the line with the pimping comment. But he didn't mean to. And I think that is noteworthy.